Welcome back to another episode of the Mindful Constitution podcast. I am capitalizing on Arthur's nap time to record this episode. So, keep your fingers crossed for me that he does not interrupt us. So, I wanted to do a shorter solo episode just chatting about my new community, Sanctuary for Sensitive Souls, a virtual community that I just launched last week, and I'm so excited. There's already like 25 people in there. So amazing. If any of the ladies who are already in there are listening, you rock. Thanks for joining early and believing in this space. But yeah, I wanted to talk about how this space came to be through the lens of my own personal journey and the evolution of my business. And I also wanted to talk about my shifting definition of sober curious, I guess my expanding definition of sober curiosity, and why I think sensitive souls are playing a particularly important role in the evolution of our planet. And then I want to talk about who Sanctuary is for and what you can expect inside. And I think that's all. So, buckle up. So I know I've talked about my own sober curious path many times on the podcast, but I think it's important to just jog through some of the cliff notes here to explain the intersection with high sensitivity and the evolution of my business and the creation of the community. So, as some of you are familiar with, I stopped drinking in 2020, July 1st to be exact. So this July will be 6 years. So crazy. And like, if you're considering a break from alcohol, like, I just cannot even, I mean, I do talk about it a lot, but it's just baffling to my mind how much my life has completely changed in so many amazing ways over the past 6 years. It's just mind-blowing. Okay. When I started my health coaching practice in 2020, I definitely knew that my drinking was not going to help me have the health or confidence that I needed to start a business, to put myself out there on social media. And starting a business is already, hard enough, but putting yourself out there on social media to publicize your attempts at chasing your dreams is absolutely terrifying. And what makes it even more challenging and terrifying is the imposter syndrome that arises when you're putting yourself out there and you don't feel 100% aligned with your message, or that you are 100% embodying your message. And of course, none of us are perfect, but being the face of a health coaching practice and being a binge drinker didn't really jive for my self-confidence in publicizing my dreams. So I felt a deep, deep intuitive nudge to just take a break from alcohol and see what would unfold from that. In hindsight, I was really unhappy for a long time. I always kind of knew I wanted more for myself. I just felt super stuck in how to go about it. And also in hindsight, it's just kind of just hilarious, not in a haha, but in a like Jesus Christ way, is, we think we're stuck, but then we're doing so many things as like, well, duh. You're stuck because you're binge drinking all the time. Like, the low-hanging fruit here is alcohol. So anyways, I finally had the courage to take a break as I was beginning my business. I had just finished my health coaching certification, my master's in nutrition and functional medicine, and I started Mindful Constitution. And I had no intention of, working in the realm of sobriety or sober curiosity, but I was sort of sharing my own alcohol-free experiment along the way, and it really just shaped my coaching practice. I recognized that a lot of my background in root cause healing and holistic health was actually the formula needed for sustainable sobriety. And so that was the focus really early on, was helping people explore their relationship to alcohol. And since then, I never drank again, and also gave up cannabis along the way last year. So really loving sobriety myself, and it really springboarded my business and my practice. And along the way, I started to do a lot of self-reflection. And honestly, I mean, there was definitely intentional personal development work, but a lot becomes revealed when we just remove the obstacles to our authentic self. And when I took alcohol out, who I really was just started to surface more, and my awareness of who I really was became more readily accessible. And I started to look into the work of Dr. Elaine Aron, who pioneered work on highly sensitive people and highly sensitive nervous systems. And she defined it with the acronym DOES: depth of processing, overstimulation, empathy, and sensing of the subtle, which means you process things extremely deeply and from a very multifaceted lens. So you may see, a whole spectrum of thought where someone else sees like it's either this or that, it's black or white. And you're like, no, it could be this, that, or the other thing. And so having a much more nuanced perspective, but that depth of processing can also lead to be more easily overstimulated, because we're just absorbing a lot of information and data. And then empathy, we all know what that is, and sensing of the subtle. And so really picking up on the energy of others and the unsaid, the unspoken. And that was something I never realized how much I picked up on that. And I used to gaslight myself a lot when someone's energy towards me didn't match how they were presenting. I would never trust myself. Like, this person doesn't have good intentions towards you, even if they're being nice, in quotes, you know what I mean? So that started to really resonate with me, and I started to understand, wow, I think I'm way more highly sensitive than I ever realized. And that kind of explains a lot about my desire to just escape with alcohol and just really, ever since I was young, I started drinking when I was 14 or so. And that was also around the same time that my family moved to Martha's Vineyard, and I was the new girl. And I think I had this, it was around the same time I started drinking, and it just gave me this outgoing personality and version of myself that I thought I was for so long. And I am pretty outgoing, but I just, developed my entire social skill set with alcohol on the scene. And so, yeah, I remember as a child, I was always super curious, super observant, really into reading, and pretty quiet, honestly. So I was always very sensitive, even when I was younger. So, yeah. Before I dig into the intersection between sober curiosity and high sensitivity, I do want to say that there is so much overlap between high sensitivity, which is not technically a neurodivergency, but I would say it's in the same realm as, being as aspects of the autistic spectrum, which does include some elements of sensory processing. There's also overlap with ADHD, with hypervigilance, which is a trauma response. And I've encountered people through social media just really debating, like, that's not high sensitivity, it's autism and ADHD, or that's hypervigilance. And my approach is that surely high sensitivity can exist on its own, and surely there's overlap, and surely somebody can be highly sensitive, autistic, hypervigilant, and have ADHD, okay? Labels, in my opinion, in my nuanced, not black and white opinion, are to help us understand ourselves more deeply so that we can support ourselves in a way that optimizes our self-expression, that supports our bio-individuality. I don't think labels are to be something that we fully identify with and become this rigid system where you are this and you can't be anything else. And because one person who was told they were highly sensitive turns out that they weren't and that they had something else, I don't think that negates every other person's experience of relating to high sensitivity and understanding themselves that way. So yeah, needless to say, labels are helpful. We don't need to identify with them. Nothing is black and white, and there's lots of overlap. Disclaimer made. So, as I started to understand myself as being highly sensitive, my desire to self-medicate with alcohol and escape and overindulge and just really use it to take the edge off existing in the intense reality here on planet Earth. And so it made a lot of sense. And I know high sensitivity wasn't the only contributing factor, but it was certainly one that resonated and started to make things make a lot more sense. So what I have really become fascinated by is this intersection of high sensitivity in today's world and the desire to escape, numb, or dim. And so I'll start by saying my definition of sober curiosity has really expanded and my work has really shifted slightly. And I talked about this in an episode this winter, to being more so geared towards the highly sensitive person with sober curiosity as a tool, because it is one avenue through which we can empower our sensitivity by exploring our relationship to substances, not just alcohol, weed, anything we use to self-medicate or numb. But it's only one way that we escape. And I think highly sensitive souls can have a wide variety of ways that we escape. And so my definition of sober curiosity has also expanded to just be more all-encompassing of like, what is distancing us from our truth? What are we using to numb? What are we using to dim our light? What are we using to self-manage or self-medicate in a world that overstimulates or overwhelms us? And what is putting a barrier between ourselves, between us and our most authentic self? And alcohol was just one for me, but it's a pretty popular one, for a lot of sensitive souls. But there's many. I mean, we can scroll, we can be in codependent relationships, we can distract ourselves with patterns and behaviors, we can use substances, we can use food. There's lots of ways we can escape our feelings. But I just really started to shift my work to supporting the sensitive soul using holistic health, sober curiosity, somatic practices, community development. And the reason why I think it is so important for us to reintegrate empowered sensitivity as the leadership trait it really is because, well, look at our fucking world. I think a lot of highly sensitive people exist in spaces where they do see things from a more nuanced perspective. They do have really creative minds that are seeking depth and deeper meaning and a soulful connection to our lives. And we live in a world where we're programmed to be on autopilot, where we're programmed to move faster than most of us feel comfortable and be more productive than our nervous systems would really love to be. And we're programmed to be polarized against each other and labeled and put into boxes. And I think throughout existing in the world as it is so overstimulating and intense for people who have pattern recognition. I mean, call me a conspiracy theorist, but it's like, if you're noticing the abuse of systemic power over and over again, there's patterns to be noticed here, people. When you're seeing that and everyone else around you is just like going about their business as normal, or people are like talking about things like politics in very black and white stances, and you're like, hey, I think there's a little more to the story here, and we're just programmed to be operating in extremes and operating at fast paces and on autopilot, like I said, like that existence is pretty brutal for a highly sensitive soul. That's like, hey, I see patterns, I see nuance, I want to live more creatively, I want to be more connected to my soul, all of these things, like my nervous system is shot over here. And so that is why I also feel that what the sensitive soul has to offer is the medicine we need as a collective. We need people who are able to apply their perceptivity and their pattern recognition and their nuanced thinking to the problems of the world. We need it to help transform the way that we currently approach dialogue. We need it to reintegrate the divine feminine into ourselves individually and collectively. And so I really think that the empowered sensitive soul is a leader in the new world, in the world that we want to move towards, in the things that we want to move away from is what the sensitive soul is trying to escape. And so that's why my business has really taken shape around supporting sensitive souls, because I believe they are here to help move the world forward in their own way, and we all are. But I think that sensitivity is really a profound gift that we've been taught to feel is too much or overbearing or too emotional, when in reality, maybe the world is just not enough of that, not enough empathy, not enough sensing of the subtle, not enough creative expression, not enough slowing down and tuning in. And maybe the sensitive soul here is here to help remind us of that. And so what I also learned along my path is how powerful community is. I felt super isolated along my own journey, and realized pretty early on that community isn't just something to help usher you through change, transformation, sobriety, doing the inner work. It is literally a necessity for a healthy life. It is a basic necessity for foundational health. Community. And when you aren't in community that believes in you, validates you, sees you, shares in your celebrations, shares in your grief, you're missing a core spoke on the wheel of basic health. And so I started, when I left my full-time job, when I had Arthur and I was doing my one-on-one coaching, and I decided to expand. Sorry, I'm adjusting in my chair here, creaking around. But I decided to build my garden yurt where I host my sister circles and do collaborations with other healers, and I realized, wow, this is so needed and people are craving this so much and loving it. And I started weaving, personal development and in with crafting and creative development circles, because I think, creativity is also a non-negotiable element of basic foundational health. We did not come here to be robots. We came here to express the inner workings of our soul. And the way that we do that is accessing our creativity. Creativity is the language of the soul. And so I've realized how important community is for everyone, but particularly for sensitive souls that can feel out of step with the mainstream, overwhelmed by the way the world currently is. And if we want to bring back sensitivity as a superpower, as a leadership quality in the world we're trying to create, then we need to be surrounding ourselves with women who are all working to integrate that superpower. So the success of my yurt circles and how much fun I've had creating these groups and circles and spaces and opportunities for creative, soulful expression, connection, and community is what inspired me to say, what the heck? I've been doing these virtual donation-based circles. Why not just create a community platform? There was a good handful of women who regularly come to the donation-based circles. I figured it could be a really nice continuity of support for women who regularly come to the in-person circles. If they want added support, they can access this virtual space. And so, who Sanctuary for Sensitive Souls is for is, well, sensitive souls is one, yes. But I like to say it's for the deep feelers, it is for the gentle visionaries. I really believe that sensitive souls have access to really beautiful, creative insight and wisdom. And so I want it to be a safe space for gentle visionaries to speak their insight and their wisdom and to share that sacred connection they have to energy and the universe and the wisdom of source. And so gentle visionaries, creatives, deep feelers, highly sensitive souls, women on a path of sober curiosity or awakening. And I'm really emphasizing sober curiosity is one element of the group, but you don't have to be sober to be there. I just think that sober curiosity is a really useful tool for sensitive souls, A, because we tend to self-medicate more, and B, many of us who are sensitive actually have like worse reactions to substances, like more anxiety, more existential dread, all that stuff. So we are more sensitive, so we want to escape more, but we also have more sensitive responses to using substances. So you certainly don't need to be sober to join, but there's definitely talk of like wanting to live a conscious, clear life and to, have that relationship with the mystical and the magical elements of life. Can alcohol be involved in that for some people? Yeah. But is it going to help us to access those deeper levels of life? I don't know. Probably not like going to assist in facilitating it. So that's why sober curiosity is a tool that is in the community, and it's for women. There's lots of women in there who are sober curious, but some who aren't too, that are just looking for deeper connection, meaning, with women who get it, with women who are connecting back to themselves, each other, leaving the world better than we found it, integrating sensitivity as a superpower, spiritual development, emotional and psychological development, exploring metacognition and self-awareness. And so, yes, this is who it's for. And what you can expect inside the community is really awesome. I'm doing 2 standing sister circles, so 1 sober curious sister circle a month and 1 spiritually curious sister circle every month. These are 2-hour circles where we do reflective journaling, group partner work, and group discussion, and we end with breathwork and meditation to integrate. And I always pick a theme. So for example, April's themes we're discussing in the sober curious circle, the masks that we wear, which is, our defense mechanisms and coping skills we've developed throughout our life, whether it's people pleasing or being a perfectionist, just the different masks that we maybe hide behind and how they develop, just exploring those. Maybe how have they protected us? How have they served us? How can we befriend them, etc.? And all through the lens of clarity that can be provided when we step back from substances. And spiritually curious this month, we're talking about what is a spiritual awakening anyways, digging into what that means and what it can feel like and what it encompasses, and just exploring that. And so those are going to be standing circles every month, and all the events and circles are going to be recorded and added to an events library. And I'm also going to try to schedule like a couple pop-up, maybe like intention setting and breathwork and meditation, maybe like half hour, 45 minutes, just quick pop on together, set an intention, do a little a mindfulness practice, and hop off. Those might happen at random times throughout the month. Then I'm also going to have guest experts periodically. So I'm hoping for maybe once every month to 6 weeks or so, having somebody host a call where they talk about their area of expertise, do a workshop, presentation, Q&A. Right now I'm talking to my friend Cindy about doing a talk on herbalism and herbs that support sensitive nervous systems. So she's coming on probably first, talking to my niece Alexandra, who's a psychic, about intuition development and Q&A and a gallery reading for whoever is on the call, see what comes through. I'm also talking to my friend Christina about doing a pop-up yoga. And just through the podcast and my collaborations in person, I've met so many amazing women that I'm just excited to have on. My friend Faith, who specializes in manifestation and inner alignment. So just like all the fun kind of, I guess you could say woo-woo, but like, I feel like that's derogatory and this shit's cool. I'm thinking about astrology, So lots of pop-ups every month and a half perhaps. Also will be recorded and added to the events library. We're going to have a book club where we meet. Right now it's going to be every 2 months just as the community gets up and running. And we're starting with a book called The Future Human. It's a book of channeled messages. Basically there's an interviewer and an interviewee. I think his name is Richard Lee. I know it's something Lee. I forget if that's his first name. But anyways, he has these like spirit guides that he channels messages from, and he's talking all about the spiritual evolution of humans and the future of the planet, and the book is really lit. I've only read the first half. I'm going to finish it and read it again before we have our live discussion. So book club, sister circles, pop-up nervous system regulation, guest experts. I also have a guided practices library where I'm doing guided breathwork and meditation recordings. So I've started with, what's the first few ones I did? Urge surfing for the sensitive soul. I've done heart first living. I did navigating shifting relationships on our path to growth. I did another one on interrupting negative thought spirals. So I'm trying to add like a couple a week and just build that up. But it's all topics that I talk to clients about or come up for me or come up from things women are sharing in the community. So it's very much like inspired by all of you in the community and what everyone's struggling with or just tapping into our highest self. So a co-creation. And those I usually try to do a little talk in the beginning about the topic and then drop into a guided practice. Those have been really fun to create. And then you also have access to my self-paced course, Sober Curiosity for Mindful Living, which is an awesome resource. And I do think that I'm going to probably do like mini courses I foresee in the future if I have topics I'm excited to share more about. And then lastly, I have an additional resources portion where I'm going to post like anything I find I think would be of interest to the community, and also my long form writing. I want to do more writing on topics outside of Instagram captions, and so I'll be posting that exclusively for the community. Oh, and there's a community wall so you can connect and share with each other, in between calls or just in general, this little closed community for us to share our own journeys with each other. So like I said, I think there's 25 people in there now, which I'm doing the first 30 spaces for a founding members rate of $22 a month, which I think is really freaking good for all of that. You just heard everything I said. It was like a lot, and I can speak from the heart saying I really am creating this as a labor of love, and I just hope it grows and becomes a supportive space for everyone in it, and just a genuine space for soft landings, exhaling, and expanding, as I like to say, and just connecting to other women on a deeper path of self-inquiry, self-reflection, spiritual awakening, healing, and just having aligned community in their life. And you can expect topics that are holistic health, Obviously, developing nervous system resiliency and adaptability, spiritual awakenings, sober curiosity is touched upon. I love talking about exploring our conditioning and programming, breaking free of the quote unquote matrix, and how can we lead inspired, creative lives that really uplift and fulfill our soul's mission here on earth, leaving the world better than we found it, aligned community and sisterhood. I love like the idea of metacognition and exploring our own awareness and consciousness expansion. So, relational health. So, all kinds of topics in the realm of holistic health and beyond, specifically geared towards more sensitive souls. So, yeah, the price is going to go up to $44 after the first 30 members, which I still think is a hot deal, honey. I might be biased. So, anyways, I think that's all. Thanks for listening. And if you have any questions at all about the community or anything about how I created it, feel free to reach out. I'm going to leave the link to my website in the caption for you to access it easily if you'd like. But otherwise, if this resonates, I would love to have you join us. I think it's going to be a beautiful, enlivening and inspiring space to be. And I'm excited to co-create it with everyone who has faith in me and who joins. So can't wait to see you in there if this resonates. And thank you for listening. And if you feel like there's any women in your life who could really benefit from a community like this, please share, spread the word, and pass it along. And I would love to have them as well. Alrighty, we did it. Arthur didn't wake up. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day. And as always, like, share, and subscribe. And as always, I love you so much. Keep going. You got this. Bye, girl.